The uncertainty for some and excitement for others is what makes the future of work a thing to always ponder about. So many questions. What will go, what will remain, and will be introduced to our workplace? Will robots replace us? Let's find some answers. Thank you for joining the Rhizome podcast. I'm Rhizome Consulting, and with me again is Jibril Lawal. Today we'll discuss the future of work, how to spot opportunity and proof your income. Hi, Jibril. It's good to have you on the Rhizome podcast again.
Hi, Toju. It's great to have. I'm happy to be here with you again.
Fantastic. The last time we looked at a few tips for preparing employees for a digital transformation, and that was an awesome discussion we had together. Now we have a few questions just talking about the future of work. Whenever I hear the future of work, I think of accelerated change and disruption, something that is coming, but with uncertainty when. So the big question here is, how far are we away from the future of work?
Thank you, Toju. Yes, we're actually not far away. We're actually here already. And, historically, whenever there is either a natural disaster or a war or pandemic, it in a way accelerates the growth or accelerates the process of new technology, new processes. It's a kind of paradigm change moment for us. So the COVID-19 pandemic kind of created that space. It was that catalyst that has now propelled us into what pre-pandemic future of work, what we used to define as future of work, I don't think we're anywhere far away. We're actually in it already, yes. But there are a few things here and there that you may kind of say are not here yet, but you can see it. You can see how much the advancement of, in terms of automation that has gone into most manufacturing. With the pandemic, that had to make a lot of people work from home. A lot of people had to stay, factories had to shut down because people need to, shouldn't be coming to work because of the pandemic, so owners of businesses need to start thinking immediately outside the box. How can we now ensure that the human element does not stop our business? And we have seen an explosion in the space of artificial intelligence and automated manufacturing lines. So you now see a lot of companies that are into production manufacturing, be it mobile phones, computer accessories, plastic bottles, whatever form of manufacturing you can think of, has seen a really big change. Or when you see the image, you just see robotic arms just assembling either cars, assembling mobile phones, so there's been a really big dynamic change. So when we talk about future of work, as we used to talk about it, it depends on the industry, it depends on the sector, but we've seen really, I think for me personally, I think we're here already. What we used to describe as future work is almost already here. We've seen the advent of artificial intelligence in different phases. Even the use of the regular, when we talk about earlier, talking about digital transformation, we understood before you always had to have meetings, physical meetings. Now, even in industries or sectors that you usually find it difficult in Nigeria to have virtual meetings, people have now accepted the fact that you can have productive and effective meetings virtually. So in so many ways, we're actually here. But I don't think we can think it's not that far away. It's actually here. So it's just, we're going to experiencing it day by day as we begin to kind of unravel the mysteries behind the new technologies that are going to come, which sectors will be affected, which sectors will be revamped, and the changes that will come with it.
Fantastic. I agree with you, Jibril. I think the future of work is here, depending on the context, the industry, it differs from industry to industry, looking at how natural events, have demanded for these radical changes. So with artificial intelligence, just like you spoke, and other emerging technologies, threatening both the quality and the quantity of traditional jobs. How can we make technology, work for us instead of us working for it? And how can those affected by redundancy? Because of course, especially for production lines, we see how robots or machines are now taking up some of these tasks that were previously taken up by humans, So how can those affected by redundancy as a result of AI reskill themselves to stay employed?
So you see, I always say this: technology has always been an enabler. It only helps us to kind of get to achieve certain things I want to achieve. As human beings, we are an incredible species or an incredible machine that we're designed to adapt to any form of change. From the creation of man to today, we've seen how we've transformed. There is no technology. If you look at from when horses started coming, cars replaced horses. Till today, you still see people riding on horses. Mm-hmm. Still cars have it. So horses have found their own place in our own world as it is, despite the growth and the explosion of mobile cars. So now I'll bring it also down to a simple, when we talk about artificial intelligence, the simplest one that I can kind of give an example is for those that are always writing on our Microsoft Word or email, there's a tool called Grammarly. Now, mm-hmm. Grammarly is an artificial intelligence tool. And how do you use it? You can see now you need limit, like the amount of time that you need to even send your document to another person to edit has reduced. It has improved your writing. Yeah. It has improved your communication skills. It has also improved for those that are in sales, that are in marketing. It has effectively improved on how they can be able to engage with their clients. And so this is how humans are now using artificial intelligence. So it's how you look at it. As long as we're not taking technology as the Terminator version that, oh, these robots are going to come back and start hunting us or killing us, it's that fear. But also, if you start looking at the little things that are in our, we're already currently using that are in form of artificial intelligence, we see how a lot of content creators are using analytics that are being generated by artificial intelligence, are now using it to market their products. So we've been using artificial intelligence in a way that, we don't see it in our faces, but we've actually been using it in our own traditional jobs. So you see writers, authors now, they use Grammarly to help them improve on their writing. You see, what would I say? Even artists, they use certain artificial intelligence tools to check to get inspirations, so there's so many ways we can be able to use this. And just to give, how does it affect by redundancy? How does it affect, I think, redundancy, you said?
Yes. So how those who are affected by this, the redundancy that comes from introducing machines into some of our processes, AI and the rest. So how those who are affected by this redundancy, how can they reskill themselves to stay employed?
Absolutely, in many ways. So every industry that has been replaced, there's another industry that has been created. So if you look at it, for instance, for people that are used to that are typists, for instance, mm-hmm. which I don't think there's anybody that would have a typist anymore. These are people that are very skilled in terms of typing, and so they can reskill themselves in starting to learn, how to build softwares, how to create some of the skills that you've already built. You have built for yourself. You can be able to start transitioning into another industry that you're passionate about. I always go back to a statement by Jay-Z. He said, the goal is to, identify your talent and live through your life through that talent. It's not about making money. It's not about fame. It's not about all that. It's about identifying something that you're really, really good at and then living your life through that. And I always say, find your passion, find your talent. So if you find yourself redundant in any industry, the goal or the very next thing to do so that you can stay employed is to identify what are the skills that you're good at and how you can now reskill yourself and then you live your life through that. It's not always about technology. It's also about humans.
Great.
As humans, technology is only there as an enabler. Yes, so it enables us to be able to be efficient and effective as we should be. So I think that would be my take on that.
Great. Thank you, Jibril. I specifically like the Grammarly analogy because, of course, I use that a lot, and I can, clearly tell you how much that has impacted the amount of time I spend reviewing documents and proofreading. To be honest, that you can only just imagine. But just diving more into redundancies, we are certain, of course, that AI and other digitalization definitely creates redundancies. But just tell us about the jobs that will likely experience more redundancies and the opportunities that digitalization is creating in the future of work. And yes, with this question is coming out from the thought that yes, redundancies are being created, but we think so are opportunities.
So I'll just reflect on the Future of Jobs report that was published in 2018 by the, I think is the World Economic Forum, about declining jobs and jobs that are emerging by 2022. And we can see how the 2020 pandemic so one of the ones that were really, that shocked the world when that report came about was with the advent of a lot of simplification. I won't say, because there have been a lot of tools before, the simplification of accounting and bookkeeping tools that are emerging. Laymen like you and I, who are not so-called accountants or bookkeepers, we're now able to conduct ourselves. We're going to see more roles, administrative and executive secretary roles, because of all the new planning tools we're having on our laptops, on our phones. Planning and scheduling is not much of a thing like that, so there's more redundancy with all the meetings now scheduled on Skype. You don't really need someone specifically for an organization that is specifically doing that. So there's also areas around, like major areas that are hit is like newspaper production, publishing, is like print publishing. Sorry, let me be very specific. Print publishing has, we definitely see a lot of redundancies. Manufacturing, I've said that it's definitely is the industry that is getting hit the most because of the huge automation that is going in there. So those are the jobs that I see on industries that I see actually, taking a back seat, or they're going to experience more and more redundancies. Data entry clerks. I don't think we have any data entry clerk anymore because of the automation of, data collection and processing that we currently see. Customer service as well. We have all this automated customer service on our phones. When you're going, you don't need to call someone. Sometimes all you need to do is they ask you, press 1, go to this, press 2, do this, press 3. You really, unless the problem is beyond that is already pre-programmed, then you need a customer. So a lot of more people are going to see more redundancies.
Fantastic.
In the spaces that I see. Those are the jobs that I see.
Thank you, Jibril. Very, very insightful. There's this fear. I like to always talk about this, and there's a theory, quite a few articles out there on it. There's this fear out there. So will robots replace me? Very big question. We'd just like to know, what are your thoughts on the theory of robots replacing people at work?
I think I still go back to that analogy I used to make. We've seen the movie Terminator so much, and we have this fundamental fear that when you think about robots, before you think about the phone that is on the phone that is in you're currently holding, or any productive use of a robot, the first thing that comes to our mind is the red-eyed metallic machine gun holding robot. That's the first image that comes to our head. But essentially, no, I do not think a robot will replace you, Toju. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that is fascinating, and as much as I know there are technologies that are coming into that space, robots essentially, or machines essentially, from the creation of, from the beginning of time, were made fundamentally to simplify work for humans. That is the reason, that's why we're seeing technology growing every day, because every day there is opportunity to simplify a particular human aspect or behavior or work to make it easier for us every day. And that's what led to the creation of robots. So for instance, told you, if robots would take care of every other thing that we do as humans, then that means there's more time for us to enjoy the persons that we are, the person that we are created to be. So I'll give you an example. Why do I need to kind of worry about carrying big loads of sacks to put up on a truck if I can get a robot to do that? Instead of doing that, I can either take long walks because a robot is already helping me to do that. Let's say making coffee at home. Let's say you have a coffee, all those other acts, then it will leave you and give you more time to do the things that you love. For instance, you have more time to be playing guitar. You don't have to be going up and down. You play one guitar, and if the robot is programmed to play a guitar, you and the robot can find time to practice new techniques, and the robot can give you how to move your fingers, which of the fingers needs to be touched, which string needs to be touched at what time, So just a dynamic perception of what robots can do, apart from the killing or destroying of humanity, but also looking at it as being help us to enjoy life as who we are. And yes, so I would like people to change that theory of robots replacing us. They will be replacing some aspects that for instance, if everything we do now, we can now resolve, can be handled by robot. And I'm giving an example of the most simplest thing, like making a coffee, right? The first thing that we think is that, this is going to be lazy. No, it won't make you lazy unless you decided to be lazy, because that means it gives you more time to go for a jog, it gives you more time to go for a walk, to get the sunlight that you need, instead of this constant sitting on the laptop, affecting your, what do they call it, this rhythmic, cardiac rhythm. You get to experience nature, you get to see the world better, you get to travel more better, and it allows us. And as much as people criticize Elon Musk, we begin to think about space. Like, okay, well, this Earth, what's out there in the stars? Let's see how we can travel there and explore more. Only with having robots handling all this basic stuff can we have the time and the mind space to think for us, to see how we can be able to achieve some of these dreams and aspirations that we have as human beons. So I don't think robots would replace you, Tojo. I know you're very fantastic. The only thing that will happen is you guys will have a good experience together.
That's relieving to hear, to be honest. And again, another thing that's just popping up from what you just shared is how this, by just looking at it from another lens, how this can really enhance our well-being. At the end of the day, the talk about well-being is really big in the workspace. It has been for a while, but with the pandemic, it became even more and more important, and how this can actually be a positive trigger, and give us time to now focus on our well-being. Thank you, Jibril. That was very, very, very insightful, to be honest, very insightful. So in that light, this is a very short question. Is the future of work a lion's share experience for gig workers?
Yes and no. Why I say yes is yes. The world is becoming more and more a global village. You know, we're more connected than we are ever before, and like I said earlier, the pandemic has also kind of accelerated and created an environment whereby we can work from anywhere, and that now creates a kind of a huge market for us to kind of work at our own pace, at our own time. So it now creates more opportunities for people that are in the gig economy. You know, there are more opportunities for short-term engagement. There are more opportunities for consultancies. There are more opportunities for, you know, freelancing, because as a freelancer, you can work from anywhere. You can work from annual. So to some extent, it is. But at the same time, we're seeing more and more organizations becoming more structured. You know, they're demanding longevity in terms of engagement with employees because of so many factors. You know, you want consistency and you want sustainability in your business or in your organization. So as much as you can, the things that you cannot do, you can easily outsource them. But for the things that you need that are core to your business or to your organization, you would like to ensure that you maintain a you know, you engage a workforce that is supposed to last for a kind of you know, a much more longer time, instead of just continuously, you know, churning out just gig work. So you see more and more organizations, instead of giving out you know, engaging digital content creators you know, randomly, they are more employing digital content creators to work internally, which is usually before you just find someone that is good with social media, you engage them and you pay them monthly, and it's, but now we see more because we're now embedding that most of the work that are needed, that are ingrained into the organization's work, like is needed in terms of operations. You know, you need to communicate your strategy, you need to work with people, you need to embed that same culture with whoever you're going to engage to do your work. So yes and no. The future of work, there is that gig workers opportunity, it's exploding because of the connectivity and everything. But again, more and more organizations are coming together and creating that, you know, bringing on board, instead of I don't want to engage you as a gig worker, I don't want to just engage you as a freelancer, I need you as part of my team, you know. So there and there, so that it's a kind of a balance there.
Yeah, great. But I'm just thinking, if you have the opportunity to sit with a non-gig worker, you know, and you know, they pose this question to you, or this conversation is on the table, what would be your advice in terms of non-gig workers navigating through current work into adoption and adaptation of, you know, the future of work?
Okay, if I understand the question correctly, you know, how do non-gig workers kind of navigate through their current work into adoption and adaptation of the future of work? So where the work is going. I think the straight answer is you continue to upgrade your skills. Even the current jobs that you are in, I'm a management consultant. So every day it's research, you know, finding the new trends, finding patterns, you know, coming up with solutions, even before the problems emerge, you know, identifying them. So for any, you know, non-gig worker that wants, because in the gig space, if you look at it, most importantly, it's there's so many gig workers, but those that are outstanding and impeccable in terms of delivery and execution of their work, they always stand out. You know, they get more opportunities because of their, and that does not just come because you're just good at something. You have to build some kind of discipline. You know, you have to make sure that you are, you know, you manage your time effectively. You have to ensure your communication is very clear. You know, so there are some of these skills that not necessarily have to do with what you're doing, but they come with general form of work. So whoever is navigating there, first of all, ensure these basic work principles are ingrained in your work culture. That's to start with. Secondly, you have to upskill. You know, you have to stay ahead of the trend. You know, whatever is coming, whatever is needed, you cannot be, if you are a freelance architectural designer, you're still using probably AutoCAD 1.0. You can't. You have to constantly be upgrading your skills. You have to constantly be coming up with even ideas of your own, making sure that you're a bit ahead of the game. So if you're a non-gig worker and you're about to go into the gig future of work, trying to establish your presence, I still go back to this fundamental concept. Identify what you're good at. Whatever work you're doing, you can't find what you're good at. And then if you know that this is what you're good at, you stick to those basic principles. Ensure you have very good time management skills, because in the gig space, nobody cares what time you come to work, what time you close. You just have to deliver based on your own commitment. Secondly, you have to be very clear and very convincing in your communication, because that will come in crucial. You cannot be overselling yourself and then under-delivering. So these are fundamental things that you need to consider. Then the work itself, whatever it is, or whatever service you're providing, or whatever thing you're doing to kind of, deliver value to other people, you have to be good at it. You have to stay updated. You have to research. You have to improve your skills. You have to practice. You can't just be a gig worker and just sit back and it's actually needed for you to be able to survive in this future of work. Because even as a gig worker, you'll be shocked how there'll be a new tool that will render your entire service obsolete. So you can't be hooked up on that. I know of graphic designers that were charging a ridiculous amount of money. Recently, I found a tool online where you can just type and describe your website, and there's an AI that will just generate that website for you exactly how you want it. It will find the pictures online. It will tell you. You can literally just, in fact, they even have a feature. I will check for that. I can't remember the specific title of. You can say, I want a website that sells coffee, that I want to start selling coffee. I want a website that will help me sell my coffee in Nigeria I have current number of sales. You just describe it. If you convert that voice over description into text, and to use that text to develop it's really incredible. So literally website designers' jobs will soon be obsolete, because if you can go to this website and pay $2 or $29 to get the website that I want, I won't have to wait for you for 1 month building a website. So, even if you're transitioning into gig work or you're adopting gig work in the future, we'll just get ready to upskill, to improve your skills continuously.
Thank you, Jibril. Awesome. To be honest, we cannot overemphasize the need to constantly be on the lookout for self-development. We need to constantly, improve ourselves to be ready for the big change and to be proactive, in our industry. Thank you, Jibril, for that. As I was getting ready for this podcast, I said to myself, does the future of work mean it's time we think differently about our career? Is there a need to be actively involved in the art of anticipatory thinking? Please, can you shed more light on this?
Yes. Like I said, specifically for us in consulting, our job is not just to sit back. I remember one of my mentors, Sheung, who one of his. I remember when I was, when we started, I think the first time I worked with him, and he gave me the description. I was like, "What made you go into management consulting?" And he was like, I was actually like, "Why is it?" And he said, "Jibril, we're like doctors, and what we do is not far from what a doctor does. Doctors save lives. We save businesses and organizations." And I thought about it, and I was like, wow. So if you think about it in that light, in terms of our career, we are supposed to be constantly thinking of solutions. So it can be, processes that we're going to come up with. Is it technologies that we need to identify to help us save businesses or to help businesses perform better? To help businesses identify what is wrong, areas that they need to improve on, what are the things that are wrong, and how do we give them certain cures, or what are the symptoms that they need to identify, and what are the steps that they need to take in that life. So yes, we need to think of our careers differently, because told you and I can wake up tomorrow and there is a kid in his basement that has developed a tool that can think of solutions. There is actually, but it's more complex. It's not easy as we see it today. One of the biggest institutions that have been running for hundreds of years, we're just realizing its disruption. The use of blockchain in financial sector, like banks are really in a space whereby it's really, they either accept it, which a lot of them are accepting. We see how Nigeria have launched the e-Naira, the CBN has launched the e-Naira. So you can see how a 17-year-old kid just created Ethereum, and then now the world is going frenzy. So we must always think about our careers and what are those things that we could be the ones that would disrupt it. We should be thinking differently on how we can be able to optimize some of our processes, how we can do, what are the technologies that are available now that we can help to make those careers better. Yes, so I believe we need to be involved in the art of anticipatory thinking, and it's not just for us, it's for everybody that is in this world. Like we started this conversation, the future of work is here. It's not, don't think about it, it's coming in 10 years, it's actually here with us. And if whatever it is you're doing, you need to, whatever career you're in, just understand that someone may disrupt that career, may disrupt that industry. So it's not, we can't be too comfortable to say, oh, we're not going to, everybody may be affected in some type of way. So it's important we think about what we're going to do, what we're heading, what are the strategic, and when it happens, how do you find a way to navigate and upskill your skills and move towards the direction that your career is supposed to take you to.
Fantastic. What a way to end the podcast. Sadly, we have to call it a day here, but it was a good way to end. There you go. The future of work is here. It's not coming. It is here. It is here. And you cannot be too comfortable. There might just be a disruption, and before you get out of one, there's another disruption. We have to constantly ensure that we are proactively preparing for big changes in whatever industry we find ourselves. So thank you, Jibril. It's been very insightful getting to speak with you about the future of work. Thank you for coming on the Rhizome podcast.
Thank you very much, Tuju. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Thank you for listening to the podcast. There you go. We had the opportunity to discuss the future of work with Jibril Lawal, and just a way to re-emphasize the future of work is here, and you cannot be too comfortable. We hope you enjoyed listening to the Rhizome podcast, and we hope you listen to more of our episodes as we keep bringing you up to speed information in different industries, and bringing you, up to beat subject matters, and bringing on experts to get us discuss this. Thank you once again for listening to the Rhizome podcast. Bye.